So my dad wanted me to take a picture from, like this thing that he passes on his armpit because they had like some allergic reactions, and he still gets one back. But what I was saying is that to keep the peace, sometimes it's better for you to not say anything, which is something that historically I haven't really been great at. I always felt the need to say something if I hear something, and right now I'm more like, you know what, I'd rather ignore that because it's not that I'm like trying to avoid having a confrontation. It's just that I don't know, like in life, it just really feels like people are only going to change if they want to. They really need like something to happen, for them to have like the opening to do that, which is something that I also talked to with my therapist because I had a conversation with my aunt, and she was being very about like my cousin's sexuality, and like she's my aunt's religious, so she would want my cousin to also be religious, but that's just not her. And same thing with me. And I don't know, I think I mentioned that I felt like she was making herself a victim of the situation because like you can control who you are, but you can't control like what you believe in basically and what you think. And so she was like talking about her pain, and I'm like, I didn't say anything. I was just listening, which I think is pretty much like the right way to go, because I think it was more of like she was venting with me. But it was one of those things that was like, I don't really care about your pain. You were making your daughter suffer, and like you're talking about your suffering. So that was kind of like the way I felt about it. But I wanted to better express my feelings in a way that wasn't aggressive, in a way that can actually lead to a conversation, some dialogue, instead of like shutting it down. I still don't know exactly what I'm gonna say or how to make her understand how she is, how she's behaving isn't really acceptable. But I don't really have the words, and also like we are close, so like I could be honest, but I don't. Because what do I want? Do I want to just say my piece and whatever, fuck whatever happens, or do I want actual change? Do I want like an actual development? And I want the latter. I want her to accept my cousin. I want her to like love her the way she is, which she does say that she does. But like when you want somebody to change, you're not really. I think like love involves acceptance. I'm not saying they have to accept like the bad things that somebody does, but these neutral things or these things, they're not only like culturally or religiously bad. They're not really, I think that acceptance should be the way to go, and I think that the lack of it is very telling. But I kind of like talked about this. I talked about how about a lot of like things like me basically accepting myself and accepting like not only myself right now but as I used to be. And also something that she said, because I mentioned that I have these memories from sometimes in the past 2016, 2017, and I really hate those memories. It's only like the bad things, it's not really the positive. And my therapist said something interesting, which is that I can't suppress it. I have to I forgot the words that she used, but basically before I can resignify those memories, I have to kind of like acknowledge them and accept them in a certain way, and accept that they had an impact. Because what we want is not to forget that things happened in the past, it's to be able to look at those things and not feel like anything, for just to be really neutral to them. And I'm not really at that point yet. But I can be. I mentioned some of the things that no longer, assault me, assault my memory or anything. So, like there are things that it can get better, and it will get better. I just have to figure out like what to do, basically. And I don't know, like it's going to be a journey, but I can't wait to no longer care about those things I heard, those things I witnessed, those things I presenced, like all those things. And it's just, as I said, I want not to care, but it's kind of like it's going to be a bit of a journey for me to get to that point. So I have to, like make sure that I'm not, I don't know, like I don't want to give up, because sometimes I feel like giving up because it feels like that's the only way to go. So just accept the pain, discomfort. But I don't want that. I don't have to, like lead a painful existence. I can't, like move past that. And as I said, I already have examples of things that I am, kind of, like, yeah, that kind of, I talk about, the song and, word, void, and how like it got me back to those times. And I think that for, because I can't forget the memories, because, like that's not good, suppressing memories, like that's never healthy. I mean, sometimes it is the only thing you can do, but it's not what you should aspire to do. you should aspire to just look back and like not feel the weight and the pain. And it's doable, basically is what I'm trying to say. I can totally do that. And I'm yeah, but as I said, it's going to be a process, but I think it's a process that I have already started. So like that is, so it's not as disheartening as it could be. But what I wanted to talk about today is that basically I came to the conclusion, it's not something that I want to be something. It's not like a new thing, but I think it's the first time that I can kind of acknowledge it, out loud. Because before it was kind of like embarrassing to say that. For whatever reason, like I understand that put me in a very vulnerable place, acknowledging such a thing. And also it made me feel, like, because I want to be somebody, so it means that I am not somebody yet. So there is that, conflict regarding, like the, yeah. So there's that, like I said, like I wanted to be somebody, but in my head I was already somebody. And I know that this sounds like healthy, like I already kind of like believing myself and all that, but it was not, because I was being delusional and I was basing myself and my life on lies. I was basing who I was on lies, and I was kind of like perpetrating these lies about who I was. And in some ways, like being the thing is never as good as being perceived as the thing, but it is close enough, because if you can make yourself believe, you can really work it out, then you might as well make it so that if you perceive that way, because you kind of are that thing, like if you people perceive you as being something, even if that's not you. So there is like that little dichotomy of like me at different points in time making myself seem like I was someone that was, as I said, not true to like my life. And it's not because I didn't want to engage, I wanted, it's just that I didn't have the opportunities. And I kind of like ended up getting carried away with what could have been, and what could have been felt better than what was. So I was stuck in that loop, and I was in that cycle, that circle where I continuously constantly lied to myself, to other people too. Even like I think that lying by omission and lying by like an implication, they are also lies. I think my head was like, it's not as bad because I didn't say it straightforward. Like I didn't say that is me, that I was doing that thing. But like you allow the implication to linger, and then suddenly you're kind of like lying. Naturally, like there are some things that, because I totally agree that sometimes you don't want to really engage with people. So if you just let something slide, you don't want to correct it. I understand. I think it's fine. It's just that I didn't want to correct it. It's not that out of convenience. It was because I wasn't happy with myself. I wasn't happy with where I was at with my life. And there's nothing wrong with those feelings. I think this is the reality. There's nothing wrong. Like your feelings, they're always valid, but they aren't always reasonable. So me feeling that way, there's nothing wrong with that. It's the actions that I took that like configured like this bullshit, this snowball that grew and grew, because I said I wasn't happy with myself. I wasn't happy with my situation, with my life. So I kind of like lived in these fantasies, and a lot of them was just like me in my head, but some of them they ended up like slipping through and like kind of like happening in my life as well. And to be fair, like there were some moments that like they were based on truth, they were based on what's happening, because I think I wish I was more adventurous than I actually am. Like I think I am adventurous, just that I don't always have the opportunities to like show that, or to have adventures. And I think that some of it, like it's kind of like my bad, because I did have opportunities, but I just kind of like turned them down. And sometimes it's just like the opportunities, they were really not there, at least not for the specific things I wanted to do, the specific things I wanted to try. So like you make your own destiny, I guess. Like you make your own reality, but like there's some things that you're not going to they're not going to be present, super present, like in your life. You have to kind of like pursue that. And I didn't know how to, and I also, something I didn't want to learn. It's just that I was kind of like frozen in place, because it is, I think complacency is, the right word, because, like I was just, like living my life and living, internally, just, in my head. And like, that was good, that was healthy, that was, savory, that was, like ideal. I was having these moments, and I don't really know how to properly address every single lie I've ever told. I don't know how to look back and how to fix it. And there's some things that you can't really go back and change, you can't really fix, but like that's okay. It's not an inherently bad thing. It's just you know, like I think that what you can do is like from this point on, you know, you just leave, you know, the truth, you know, like your truth, but like whatever, you know, the truth is. And those, that is kind of like the key to a healthy relationship with yourself. Because as I said, I've always like loved myself despite, you know, my insecurities and the things that I have, you know, both like physically and like mentally, emotionally, and like that I think the real version, my real version of myself, like my real self, has always been present. You know, I think there's always been at the back of my mind a little voice, you know, it's called bullshit, and it is important to listen to that voice, but like you also don't want that voice to ring, because you know, like it can be reasonable to some extent, but in other situations it can be very pessimistic. I think that's, at least because I had the tendency of being a pessimist. So you know, like it was pulling me, and it was kind of like pushing the truth out of me, and it was pulling the truth out of me. And but at other moments it was kind of like dragging me down, dragging me into you know, like this negative ways I look at myself. Because ultimately I'm, you know, like human beings, like we are not a monolith. Like we are, each of us is a lot of different things, and sometimes those things are contradictory, but like they're no less true. Because there are different sides to us. There are different parts of us that want different things. So there was a part of me that always wanted to call bullshit and wanted to call, you know, like my lies, but you know, like it was a very small part, because everything else was, you know, really pushing for like those realities. And I mentioned this before, there were points where I didn't want to live my own life because I wanted, you know, what I didn't have. I wanted what I couldn't have. It's not that I couldn't, as if it's impossible for me to get things done. It's just that what I wanted was so grandiose, was so megalomaniac, that it was very unlikely. Like nobody has ever done any of those things before. So like, why would I be, you know, like they want to, you know, break through? And that comes with, like, as I said, like me being delusional, where I just generally believed that that was going to happen, not necessarily because I was superior, but I mean, part of it is that too, but because I don't know, like I really, it's kind of like it was what I was destined to do. I don't really believe in that notion that there is, you know, something that is kind of like orchestrating, you know, the situation, orchestrating circumstances for you to be something. But you know, it's more about what happens. What happens. And I know a lot of people are very uncomfortable with that. I don't understand the feeling. I mean, kind of, I think I understand, like, but I never experienced that, you know, so I don't really know, you know, what you feel and how you feel it. But anyways, I'm so like I'm putting back the lies, and I'm trying to be more honest with myself, you know, being on the forefront of my life and having my little adventures. And also, like as I mentioned before, like I don't really need something too grandiose, you know, in terms of like my daily adventures, you know, just going somewhere. For example, I mentioned, you know, my idea to just have like this circuit where I would go to all these different supermarkets and, you know, grocery shops, and I would just, you know, get stuff, you know, here and there, and not much. It doesn't have to be much money. Actually, like it's bad for me, like not to spend any money at all, because yeah, because you know, like if I wanted to do it more than once, I only have, you know, like so much money. But you know, it is something that's very simple, but that would make me very happy. It's something that would really work out, you know, like in the end, something that would as I said, like it would kind of like make my day. Like that would be my adventure for the day, and it would be, you know, like I don't know if fulfilling is the right word, but it would be, as I said, like I just need a little adventurousness in my life. I need a little I need more adventures, because as I said, I think I'm adventurous, but I don't always have like the opportunity to showcase that. And you know, sometimes I'm thinking about my little adventures. I don't know why some of them, they really stood out to me, but you know, like some of them are pretty simple. I'm thinking about the past and the moments I had, and you know, as I said, some of them like were pretty they were pretty normal. They were not, you know, kind of like this, not particularly extraordinary, but still like they meant something to me. And I think that the new ones, they also have the potential. I just have to, because also like it's important for my sense of freedom and, you know, independence, being able to just go out there, you know, do something that I just thought about this today, and I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna do it. Like that is very powerful, you know, like this kind of like really makes me feel more comfortable in my own skin, because being limited to do those things, I understand why there are limitations. I understand that I have fucked up. I understand that there are risks and there are, you know, like situations, liabilities, but still, like I would like to have, you know, a moment for myself and with myself. I don't know. what else to do. I think that, but I will say that, there are opportunities in my life that I don't always, seize, and I'm starting to seize them. And I think that that's going to be important for my development, because I think the key for me to no longer be stuck in my mind is to do things, in real life. Things. I mean, like, my mind is real life, but stuff like outside of my head, like that is kind of like the key. And as I said, like, there are some things that are very doable, like they're very like I can make them happen, and just some of them are pretty small, but they're going to go a long way. They're going to have a really interesting impact in my life. But yeah, so as I said, back to what I was saying, I want to be somebody, and what does that mean, to me? And I think I want recognition. It's something I mentioned before, but when I was like in high school, that was also what I wanted. I didn't really always want to acknowledge that, because it felt like I was caring too much about what people thought. But it was, something I want to have. And honestly, like, I will say that in my life, I'm very fortunate to come from a very healthy background. So I do think that, like, my accomplishments are acknowledged, and that I am, I feel like, for example, with my parents, I feel like I'm someone. I'm very important to them. They're very important to me. So we have this very, beautiful relationship. But, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's enough. And it feels bad for me to say this, because ultimately, I know you shouldn't really depend on other people. Not depend on other people, but you shouldn't really let other people dictate how you feel about things. And like, it's not that I'm doing that. It's just that, I don't know, I want to be great. I think that is the thing. I want to be great. At what? It matters not. And I don't know. Some of like the things that I do and that could maybe lead me to being perceived this way, like, they are happening. There's no response. So for example, my writing, I write in English, which is a language that most people that got my book, they don't speak, so they're not really, so there's no like no feedback basically. So I don't know if I'm good or not. I have, what I think about and what I feel about what I'm writing, which is, usually I'm very happy and very proud. But not because I'm like the greatest, but because I feel like I've accomplished what I set out to do. I think that is the biggest thing whenever I'm like working on a chapter, and I realize that things are kind of like falling into place, and that I can make the connections, because in the series you need connections. And I think that maybe from book 1 to book 2, I didn't. There were so many things that were kind of like left in the background, and right now I want to. I'm kind of like, moving this story, and things are flowing very well. And also, like, sometimes I just like what I write. I think it's beautiful. I think it is. It means something. I think that like, I'm saying something. I think that is important. So yes, I am satisfied with myself and with my writing and with my books. And I mean, of course, like, my goal is always to improve, and I hope that is happening. But I don't know, I think that I needed feedback. Who knows? I started translating my first novel, to Portuguese, and maybe if I finish, people are going to be able to read, and that's going to be, a thing. Who knows? But I don't know, it's just really fun. Writing is fun, at least for me, and it feels very fulfilling as I'm doing it, because that is, something that I mentioned before. I've mentioned this in therapy today, that like, if I had written more, I would look at the past decade and feel like I wasted less time, because writing, it takes an effort. And I do understand that, because I wanted to kind of like put out a book every year, and that is just not realistic, because I'm not doing that full time. So maybe I could have, but that's the thing, like, there were some points in time where I could have been doing that full time before I got to college. I did have openings, I did have windows of time where that could be the case, but I never did. So there's that. It kind of sucks, but I don't, as I mentioned before, I want to look back, and it's not that I want to be happy about this necessarily. I just want there to be no weight. I don't want to think negatively about things. It can be neutral. I don't have to like them, as I said. I can just be neutral about, the use of my time, and how, because as I mentioned, like, there were so many things that I heard, that I saw, that were so bad for me. They really got me going in a very negative way. They got me riled up and, depressed, just generally very sad about the state of the world, state of affairs, and I kind of regret being in those environments, but I can't undo the past. So I just wish I could so yeah, I can undo things. So I wish I could just look at that and no longer feel the pressure and the hatred and like the disbelief, because it just made me ill basically. And I want to not feel that. I want to look back and you know. And also like my therapist told me to start writing down like the positive things, because as I mentioned, when I look back, I have like a handful of positive memories, particularly from like 2016, 2017, and there is like a sea of like very bad memories, very bad things that I witnessed. And I just put myself in a lot of environments, in a lot of situations where I just got myself forced, and I don't know what exactly I expected from things. I think I mentioned this before. I felt like I had to be in those places to prove that I was strong and that I didn't care. But that didn't work, because I wasn't strong, not, at least not in the way that I wanted to be. And I did care. Like those things affected me greatly. And they still do. Like I still look back and it's just, it is what it is. You know, like but as I said, like I can't suppress those. But you know, but then my therapist, you know, told me to start writing down like the positive things, because that way I'm kind of like reinforcing in my head, and then you know a decade from now I look back and I'll be thinking about the positives. You know, and also I think I kind of established my goal for, you know, like by the end of me being 38, I kind of like want to have published 5 novels. I'm kind of like counting that I'm going to publish one like every other year, and I want to finish the series, and then there's going to be more things to, you know, write. I don't even know which one, because I started so many series in this world that I'm writing, and I've been thinking about I don't know, there are some of them which is interesting, because there's some stories that I want to tell, but I feel like that at this point I don't have enough like experience for me to talk about them. So I feel like there's some things that I want to write that I'll probably be writing in my 40s, you know, if I make it that far, because in my 40s I will be I don't know, I'll be more of an adult than I am right now, and I will have better grasp, because I think like every year, like I think a lot of me, of my essence is still pretty much the same, but you know, things they kind of like, it's like I'm honing the important things for me, and I am I don't know, I think I gain more experience because I see more things, I live more, so like that gives me perspective. So as I said, I kind of like, there's some stories that I think that I can start you know, like I don't know, like I don't know, I have many possibilities, and I'm trying to, you know, see which one I'm going to go. I have this one that happens in 1800s, and I have this one that happens in the 70s, 1970s, and I think that, you know, like they are kind of like cooler, but at the same time, because the thing about something that is kind of like historical like that is that there's a way people said things, there's a way that, you know, the things that we, you know, saw, they were different. So I require like, I guess, like more research, you know, so maybe I would like something that is like way back then in a foreign language, so I can you know, work on it. I don't know, it remains to be seen, but yeah, so that's kind of like my goal. I think that because that's pretty much where I noticed, like if I had written more, or I've been able to finish more, you know, projects, I would look back and I'll be more okay with like the bad moments that I had, and the times where, you know, things just didn't work out, because there's I'm tired of thinking about the past, particularly you know, as I said, 26, 16, 17, like those years, they're kind of haunting me. I'm so done. I wish I would stop thinking about them, but I kind of can't, it seems like, and they keep coming back, and me trying to push them away is not really helping, so I just have to embrace them and just experiencing things, you know. But I will say that on the upside, like I'm looking back at those moments in the past, and like they were bad, and they were really bad for me, you know, for my mental health, and it's consequence for my physical health. But you know, like I no longer have those things in my life, so things right now are kind of like better, although there's always the weight of that, because even if I'm not consuming new things, I'm not seeing new things regarding like those people and events and all that, what I did consume back then, it still had a very significant impact. So you know, things, they keep coming back to mind, they keep coming back, you know, to me, and as I said, like maybe forgetting is not the goal, but I want to kind of like disarm them, because it feels like they're triggers that have to do with them. So I want to, you know, like I want that to no longer be the case. I want to be able to think about the past and think about the positive things. And I'm gonna start doing the thing that my therapist said, of me writing down the positive things that happen, because particularly right now that I'm writing, you know, like more, I have more like, because I do have my writing, you know, the books I'm trying to write, but I have started like writing down, like, you know, with a pen and paper, some of, you know, like the thoughts that come to me, some of the things, you know, yesterday when I was taking the exam, I finished about like an hour before like I could live with like the notebook with like the questions. And I ended up like waiting, and as I was waiting, I just wrote anything and everything that came to mind, and it felt so good. Like, it feels really good to write these things down, like even like the most mundane ones. Maybe I should write about like my frustrations with the whole 2016 2017 thing, because like that is kind of like, those are like the lost years for me. Those they feel like what pretty much I don't want to happen again ever. Like I want to like be it's not that I want to be blindly productive, but I want to live my life to the extent, to the fullest extent. Of course, that means different things for different people, because they have different opportunities and they have different privileges. But according to my situation, I want to enjoy myself and I want to enjoy life. And naturally, there's always going to be negative things, there's always going to be problems and challenges, so I'm not trying to reject those. But whenever I can have some joy, I want to, and that is very important for me. From like this period on, because I think that is important value for you to have, because it kind of like guides the way that you interact with the world. As I said, I'm being more outgoing, I'm being more, I've been doing things more, and I'm happy. I'm happy with where I am at, and I'm happy that I'm not unhappy about my life, because it sucks to just detest what you have and crave something else, particularly something that is really not doable. Because as I said, I think it all goes back to the fact that I want to be somebody, that I want to be great. And I think that there are ways for me to just greatness comes in various shapes and sizes. I just have to find something. And I think it's important not to think that like the finish line, because I think like death is the finish line, so anything before that, like it's not. So you can always do more and learn more and be more. And I want to with my writing, for example, I want to always do better. I want to I want to improve. And I think that improvement is the key to greatness, like dedication, and those types of things. And I think that I'm pretty confident that I'm like I'm not going to grow complacent regarding, at least like my writing. Like I'm always wanting to do better. I always want to improve, and that is very important, as I said. But I also should transfer this to other areas of my life. So for example, if I feel that I have been lazy in the past, of course sometimes like in moments of laziness of boredom, like they're kind of important. But like if I feel like I have been lazy in the past, like I want to do better, and it's okay for me. You don't have to go from like 0 to 100 like immediately. I think that the increments that happen, like they're all very important, and that is something that I think life has taught me, because I think I expected me to go from like completely unskilled to having mastery in something in no time. And when it didn't start to happen, I would grow frustrated, and then I would kind of like give up, or at least maybe not give up, because in my head I wasn't giving up, I was putting it on hold so I can go back in the future. But there's so many of those things that right now I'm like, I'm not going back. This is as far as it gets, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, like giving up. I mean, you shouldn't give up on things, but sometimes like if you realize that is not the thing for you, pushing through, like it might not really be the best solution. Sometimes it's better for you to just put that to the side and do something else, do something new, and until you find your thing. I think that's been kind of like my motto lately. I've been trying, and then I realize that's not the thing, I move on and try something else, and hopefully I'm gonna find myself in the process. So for example, my academic life is a really good example of that. I'm gonna try something new, and I'm going to try something new, and that's going to be it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with pivoting. I think that's a better way of putting it. Instead of like giving up, like pivoting, you're just going for something else. And sometimes like these new things that you try, they might turn out to be the thing we're looking for. I don't know exactly what I'm looking for example, academically, but I do think that you know it when you find it. So I'm just aiming at all these different directions and hoping that I'm not that I'm good enough, but like not good enough, that I am dedicated enough. Because even if like something is not it's not your end game, you can still learn from things, you can still learn from your experiences. I don't regret. The only thing I regret maybe from like my college experience so far, in which I have tried 3 different courses, is that some of them like I didn't give up earlier. I think I was 3 years and a half for 6 months in the plastic arts, and then 3.5 years for computer engineering and transportation engineering. And I could have like done this sooner. I wanted to do it like last year, but I ended up missing the date to kind of like have to enroll in the national exam, and it's. But like I don't regret it, like so. But if there was something that I would have done differently, was to kind of like try something else before. And I think that I've learned this lesson because I mentioned that I'm gonna try my new degree, but like if I don't like it, I'm going to enroll again and I'm gonna do the test again and I'm gonna try something else. And that is exciting. That is exciting. Like right now, because I'm gonna turn 28, so it feels like maybe I should already have figured it out. But the more I talk to people, the more I listen to new experiences, I'm like, what? Like each of us has their own pace. So there's nothing wrong with like how I've been doing things. I just hope that in the future I don't know, I have like I realize things sooner, realize that, because it's not about realizing, always about realizing that that's not your thing. Sometimes, like there's like this pressure that you put in yourself. So I think that the first major I tried, which was computer engineering, like I think I was there for a while because, some of it was because of work. I was able to find a pretty good job, my internship, like in the area. So I kept going, even though I wasn't really taking classes, I just kept enrolled. But like I also was very resistant to changing because it felt like I should it felt like I should have I had to finish that. I can't like just abandon it. And then second one, I kind of was, I think I realized sooner. It's just that by the time I was able to kind of like do something about it, it was already kind of late into the course. But as I said, like the thing about where I want for my life right now is that the mistakes I made in the past, bad decisions, like I don't want to make the same things in the future. So it's okay that they happen. Naturally sometimes it doesn't feel okay, I feel bad about it, but like that's pretty much where I'm heading towards. Like this happened, and it's bad. I should learn my lesson so I don't do this again in the future. I think that's that. So anyways, bye.